now that Drake had to find his new self after the drama with Kendrick. Drake's latest album, SSS for You, has caused quite a stir, but not for the reasons his fans or the industry might have expected. Drake, who has long been known for pulling in impressive streaming numbers and dominating the charts, seems to be facing a different reality this time. After a strong first week that still led to his 14th #1 album, the album's momentum dropped drastically, and by the third week, it was barely moving copies. To make matters worse, it's now been overtaken by Kendrick Lamar's GNX, an album that has been out for much longer, yet continues to thrive, even on its 15th week. This is a big blow for Drake, considering his track record and how closely he ties his identity to chart success. For years, Drake has been seen as the artist who consistently delivers chart-topping hits, and his numbers have been a point of pride. However, SSS for You marks a significant shift. Drake himself has even started distancing himself from the album, admitting that it's one of the worst projects he's released. In contrast, Kendrick Lamar's GNX seems to be redefining what success in hip-hop looks like. Kendrick's album, rather than relying on flashy gimmicks or industry tricks to maintain chart presence, is simply a quality body of work that's standing the test of time. It's a cohesive, well-thought-out album, and that artistry is what's keeping it alive in a world where the streaming era usually rewards short-term virality. Kendrick's longevity speaks to the depth and substance of his work, showing that there's still a place for albums that offer more than just chart appeal. Drake's reaction to GNX outperforming his album shows just how much this is affecting him. On social media, he has shared posts that seem to mock Kendrick's success, but these attempts come across as desperate. For someone who once dominated without having to defend himself, seeing Drake in this state is telling. It underscores the shift that's happening in hip-hop. Kendrick is pushing the genre forward with his focus on artistry, while Drake appears to be struggling to keep up. Kendrick's achievement with GNX is remarkable, particularly in an era where quick hits often overshadow long-term impact. By creating a quality album that resonates deeply with listeners, Kendrick has proven that artistry and substance can still lead to commercial success, challenging the very metrics that once made artists like Drake seem invincible. Drake's reaction to the lackluster performance of his latest album, SSS for You, has been one of deflection and avoidance. Instead of addressing the issues head-on, he's resorted to poking fun at Kendrick Lamar's success and trying to downplay his album's poor reception. For instance, Drake shared a video of a dancer holding a dictionary, referencing a line from his track, "Give Me a Hug," where he mocked Kendrick's music for being too complex. The implication is that Kendrick's listeners need a dictionary to understand his lyrics, implying that the fun has been taken out of hip-hop. However, despite Drake's attempts to clown Kendrick's style, the public continues to embrace Kendrick's music, even enjoying its complexity. Kendrick's album, GNX, has not only stayed relevant long after its release, but some of its songs, 125 weeks old, are outperforming Drake's latest material. Meanwhile, SSS for You, which consists of 21 songs, hasn't captured the same attention, and Drake's attempts to belittle Kendrick's work are falling flat. In another video shared by Drake, a fan urged people to stay on Kendrick's side, pointing out that Kendrick brings something unique and fun to his performances, including playful ad-libs. Again, Drake's efforts to paint Kendrick's style as out of touch or overly serious haven't resonated, and the public still appreciates Kendrick's blend of artistry, complexity, and entertainment. What's becoming clear is that Drake can no longer rely solely on his past successes and high streaming numbers to maintain his dominance. The music landscape has shifted, and Kendrick Lamar's focus on quality, cohesive albums has set a new standard. As Drake grapples with this reality, he seems to be distancing himself from SSS for You, acknowledging that much of the material was lazy and filled with filler. He's attempting to brand this album as a side project, something separate from his main catalog, to protect his broader image. Drake's coping mechanisms, including claims that the album was suppressed or unsupported, seem like excuses to explain its failure. The truth is, the album didn't resonate with fans or the broader music community in the way his previous work has. Despite his efforts to downplay the situation, Drake is being forced to confront the fact that he is no longer the undisputed numbers guy in the industry, and that Kendrick Lamar has surpassed him in both artistry and cultural relevance. Ultimately, Drake's attempts to downplay SSS for You as a failure and dismiss Kendrick's success haven't worked. He will have to face the reality that this album didn't hit the mark, and moving forward, he may need to reevaluate his approach to stay relevant in a music world that is increasingly valuing substance over flash. Drake's approach with his recent album seems to have been a strategic move designed to distance himself from the album in case it flopped. From the start, there were signs that he was setting up an easy escape route, allowing him to walk away from the project without much damage to his reputation. For example, collaborating with PartyNextDoor, an artist much smaller than Drake in terms of popularity, was an unusual choice for him. Historically, Drake has worked with big names to amplify his own visibility and relevance in the culture, but in this case, he aligned himself with an artist whose numbers were unlikely to elevate the project. This decision gave Drake a built-in excuse. PartyNextDoor's typically low sales could be used to explain the album's underperformance. Furthermore, Drake classified SSS for You as an R&B record, despite it sounding similar to his past works with a mix of rap and singing. By labeling it as R&B rather than hip-hop, the more competitive genre, Drake further distanced himself from his usual standards of success, making it easier to justify the album's weaker performance. It was as if he was preparing for the album's failure before it even dropped. As expected, once his album failed to meet expectations, Drake began to distance himself from the project. There hasn't been much promotion for the album, and there are no significant music videos to accompany its release, a stark contrast to how Drake typically handles album rollouts. More tellingly, Drake has avoided the spotlight almost entirely, a rare occurrence for someone who usually thrives on being at the center of attention. The entire situation points to Drake setting up a fallback plan, positioning the album in such a way that he could blame external factors or the nature of the project itself for its failure. By making it a collaboration with a smaller artist and categorizing it outside of hip-hop, he essentially gave himself an out. Now that the album hasn't performed well, Drake has already begun to move on, almost as if the record never existed. This calculated retreat indicates that Drake was likely aware that the album wasn't up to par, and he had prepared to abandon it from the start. Drake's recent experience has pushed him into a reality he's never had to confront before, a reality where he is no longer the dominant force in hip-hop, and his numbers, which have always been a key part of his identity, no longer tell the story of success. The album's underperformance, especially in comparison to Kendrick Lamar's GNX, has deeply affected Drake, both creatively and personally. For someone as chart-driven and number-obsessed as Drake, losing a major #1 spot to Kendrick is a significant blow. Throughout his career, Drake has relied on his commercial dominance and massive popularity to motivate his output, often leaning on quantity over innovation. But now, with his album flopping, he finds himself at a crossroads, unsure how to proceed in a world where he is no longer the top dog. This realization has seemingly discouraged Drake from continuing in the same vein, as his energy and enthusiasm appear to have dwindled. Drake, who has always operated with a certain formula that worked for him, releasing hits that keep him relevant in both the rap and pop worlds, has now lost his footing. It's not just the music that's faltered, but the lack of success that has shaken him to his core. Being second to Kendrick, an artist known for pushing boundaries and delivering projects with depth, forces Drake to rethink his approach to music. What we're seeing is the beginning of Drake distancing himself from SSS for You entirely. He's likely hoping to make the album disappear from public consciousness before plotting his next move, one that will hopefully repair the damage to his reputation. This could involve a complete rebrand or a hiatus until enough time has passed for people to forget the album's failure. The shift from the Drake we once knew, a hitmaker confident in his dominance of the charts, to one who is backing away from his own music is stark. In a broader sense, this shift in Drake's trajectory signifies a new era in hip-hop. Kendrick Lamar, with his artistry and longevity, has redefined what success in the genre looks like. While Drake once thrived by relying on catchy, crowd-pleasing records, Kendrick's more substantial, complex projects are resonating more with listeners over time. This new reality is challenging artists like Drake, who have built their careers on commercialism and mainstream appeal, to either evolve or risk being left behind. In the end, Drake's legacy will likely hinge on whether he can adapt to this new landscape where artistry and longevity are valued over immediate chart success. For now, though, it's clear that the failure of his album has forced him to retreat and reconsider his next steps. Kendrick Lamar's dominance over Drake at this stage feels like a bigger win than even the direct beef itself. Drake's continued failure, particularly in the shadow of Kendrick's ongoing success with GNX, has stripped him of the core elements that once defined his career. This consistent position behind Kendrick signifies a turning point not just for Drake, but for the industry as a whole. With the landscape of hip-hop evolving and Drake no longer being able to rely solely on his chart-topping formula, the genre has become better off for it. Kendrick's success isn't just a momentary victory, it represents a shift towards artistry and substance in rap, something that Drake, despite his efforts, hasn't been able to replicate or compete with. Kendrick's influence and impact, even with an older project, are a testament to the power of authenticity and depth in music, qualities that have elevated him far above the competition. This entire scenario speaks volumes about both artists' careers. Kendrick has solidified his place as a trailblazer, someone who can create timeless art that continues to resonate long after its release. Meanwhile, Drake is now left to reassess his approach, as his reliance on numbers and popularity no longer guarantees his dominance. It's a clear reflection of where the industry is heading. Artists with true influence and substance are rising to the top, while those who built their legacy on commercial success alone are being left behind. Let me know your thoughts on this shift in hip-hop, and how Kendrick managing to stay ahead of Drake speaks to the future of both their careers. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe, and if you think that Drake tried to rig the game but failed to match Kendrick's genuine influence, then drop your thoughts in the comments.